good morning, afternoon, and evening. Welcome to Karate Without Belts. I'm John.
And I'm Jeremy.
And I'm drinking some slightly stale coffee. But well, welcome back, folks. We took a little break. Jeremy, how you doing this week?
Pretty decent. Just it was always a little hectic. Got back from the pool a little while ago. I
Who
did
won?
finally. Uh, I did finally beat my son, but yeah, my daughter, otherwise known as the fish. Yeah, she, she literally she beat me pretty bad, and she finally said, "Dad, I'm bored. You need to practice more." So I'm like, "Okay, fine." So it's all right. It's okay.
That's good.
I'm not.
That's good.
I'm not giving up, but I mean, she she's they're entertaining her with the local swim team and stuff, and I think she'll probably go that route. And she really is pretty good. So that may be her calling. So that's cool. And I support her on it, but hopefully I get better enough to where I can at least be competitive and maybe win one race against her. So, but anyway.
That's good. I've been, what is it? Recently, I've been kind of, since we're in August and school's kind of in limbo for me, I can kind of take a little more time just to work on different stuff. And recently, I've been experimenting with the One Punch Man workout.
Uh,
So so I don't know if you know about. Do you know about that?
no, I don't.
Okay, so One Punch Man workout. I was going to say this towards the end, but the One Punch Man workout. So it comes from the once drawn on a napkin, uh, now fully colored Japanese anime, whereas it's about a hero named Saitama, and he just beats everybody in one punch. It's kind of like the Deadpool of Japan,
Uh,
but they kind of just ask him how he got so strong, and they can't believe he's that strong, and he's just kind of like very like lethargic about it. He's like, whatever. He's like, well, I just did 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 squats, and ran 10 kilometers every single day for 3 years. And it's kind of a point. That's a point in the story where they were like, "You're an idiot, and it's just normal training. Anyone can do that." He's like, "Yeah, and I did it. That's why I'm so strong." But this has now gone into a rash of different people actually doing that training and posting their whatever about their results and whatnot. And so I mixed that into just regular training to see if I could actually do 100 push-ups. I can if I break it up, but that's the first time I've ever really attempted that. Then sit-ups and squats, and then going for a run. I split up the running because I've got a little tendonitis in my left foot, right foot. The doctors can tell you. Um, so that's been fun. It actually been working, but you got to split that stuff up. Plus psi, lots of
oh yeah.
psi.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool.
So I wanted to recount that. Um, so one thing we've been talking about and kind of how we met was through a seminar or a camp, um, through an organization. An organization, in general, is a very good thing. Being organized is better than not being organized, because if you're not organized, well, you're not going to be able to do much of anything. But if you have an organization, that means you have to organize not just papers, you have to organize people. And it goes into the lead of what we're going to talk about today. Is going to talk about karate organizations in specific. Their foibles, their follies, their good parts, their bad parts, and just kind of what they are and get into the anatomy of it. So, Jeremy, what is a karate organization?
Um, just kind of my experience has just been usually a a set group of people that are really training together and basically have kind of a guideline or guidebook to kind of follow what they're doing. And whether it's a curriculum, whether it's a way they go about doing things, whether it's processes, procedures, whatever. I mean, it's just really kind of that simple. That's what I've always seen it. I've seen very structured organizations. I, I've seen groups that I don't know how they call themselves organizations. It's like, but they call them organizations. So it's kind of wide open. So
Yeah. I think one thing it tends to be around is style. So when I really gotten into, we haven't on this podcast, we haven't really gotten into schools of karate and stuff, but normally people will try to have some organization based around a style, and I feel that kind of goes out from, you have dojo and you have teacher, and you might have people inside the dojo go, and then they like may have to move away or get transferred for a job or something like that, but they still want to keep doing what they do, so they kind of invariably keep doing whatever they're doing in at that distance. Maybe they open their own school or have their own small group, and then those two groups come together, and then you can kind of multiply that out, depending upon how big or how small something is. So bigger group, you have bigger groups, right? Like Shotokan, I think to extent Goju-Ryu has several large organizations around those styles, right?
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. So
But you get like smaller stuff where people who train in very, 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 very small, tight-knit groups where they want to have some form of organization so they know who's who and who isn't who and what's legitimate and what's not legitimate.
yeah, and one of the things I've noticed is it's kind of broken off a little bit from organization into like camps now. And that's kind of some of the things that I've seen to where like, okay, this person who's been a part of this organization or this style, but yet they've added maybe a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and therefore they're trying to combine their own flavor. Maybe somebody's like, okay, I see how this is coming about. So that people are going to that camp or this camp. And it's like, I don't know, it's almost like individualized, instead of centering around, it's almost like instead of centering around the old arts and stuff like that, it's centering around what somebody's come up with lately. That's something that I've noticed, specifically more more from your MMA kind of standpoint, but I'm also starting to see it from some classical um, side. And actually, there's one that just opened up here in my area that it's a combination of like Okinawan and Chinese and uh, keto and jujitsu, and you're just kind of like, okay, that's okay, and that's if that's what you're wanting to do, and people want it, cool. I mean, that's fine, but I don't know. I just kind of I was just looking it up since the person just moved in here, and I'm just like, what are you trying to teach? Actually, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out exactly what direction you're going because that's a pretty broad range.
Right, and then a lot of the times whenever whatever style pops up, right, that generally just comes from whatever that one head teacher has kind of put together from their however many years of experience doing however many different kinds of different martial arts and whatnot.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. but it doesn't that does beg a question of how are they putting together their school? How are they putting together largely their organization? Um, I mean, it goes into legitimacy, but we don't really need to get into that because, how legitimate is anyone when they start out doing anything?
Yeah, and I think I think some of these organizations they look at it. Okay, is it going to be pure business or is it going to be actual training? What's going to be the actual specific focus? And
Right.
I've seen both, and the ones that always get me are the ones. Well, you come to this camp, and yeah, you can get a black belt in our system for like 3 or 4 or $5,000. You're like, really? What's that really going to pay off? I, I mean,
Nobody's mortgage. That's what I'm telling you.
yeah, I'm
Or
like,
somebody's mortgage for that matter.
uh, yeah, I'm just like, holy cow! I look at some of these people that pay this kind of money for just a belt, and I'm like, just because you moved up in belt, did that actually increase your knowledge? Did it really, or are you just kind of, oh, congratulations, I got another certificate. Woo, yay, go me. But it's you know, and it's interesting. I see this in the IT arena as well too. It's funny how these two parallel because
Hmm.
with like different technologies, everybody's like, oh, I gotta get this certification, this, that, and the other thing, and I can build my resume up and this, that, and the other thing. And a lot of times, if you've been around IT for any length of time, yeah, congratulations. You read a book, you took a test, you got a piece of paper, congratulations. Here's the system, go work on it. I was like, I've never done that. Well, what, what do you want? What do you want? A cookie? It's like, you go back to that. It's like, congratulations, you got a paper. What are you gonna do with it? And so,
Well, yeah. I think there is some sympathy that I have for that though, because there are people, um, myself included in this, who kind of get lost, and and I think what they're seeking is some form of validation, right? And
and,
whether
and
or not
I
they need
think
to pay for that.
sometimes I would agree there are sometimes yes, I would agree with that. But I think there's a difference between seeking validation and how is it almost seeking knowledge through a piece of paper or through some type of
Yeah.
and I look at it was funny for some reason I use this example on something else and I'm going to use this example now is if you ever seen the movie Good Will Hunting,
Hmm.
you know when when Robin Williams is sitting down with Will, or Matt Damon, he's sitting there and he basically says, you've read almost every book on planet Earth. You can tell me every inch of what the painting looks like in the Sistine Chapel, but have you ever experienced it and actually smelt it when you're inside? And it gets back to when his girlfriend talks about how do you know chemistry the way you do, and it's like in this realm, I just it's like Beethoven. It's like a lot of people see music as chopsticks. I see it. I just play. He was able to play
Yeah.
in that arena, and I think some people get so compartmentalized, and I think that's one of the problems I see with, as I like to call, I guess, organization hopping.
Right.
Oh, I'm gonna get this, and how many times have you seen? Well, I've got I've got a quadruple black belt in this, and then I've got a brown belt in this.
Quadruple black belt, man, it must be triple excised.
Yeah, yeah,
Gold plating and everything.
yeah. I mean, it's like, okay. And then when they're working on a technique, then they'll say, well, this comes from this and this comes from that. When are you going to internalize it and actually make it your own? When are you going to experience the whole thing for yourself? And I think that's part of the good part about organizations is they show all this, but I think one of the things that may not be there, and I think people have problems internalizing from organizations, is how do they apply it from what they're learning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like if you're gonna jump into, and in some people talk about organization hopping and style hopping, and they are almost synonymous to a degree. There's some organizations where they do kind of have a lot of different styles come in at the same time. And so like you'll have a modernist person with an Aikido person, with a karate person, with a kung fu person, and they can kind of learn off of each other.
Right.
And those are fine. I think that
Yeah.
that's like it's what we call in Japanese it's called gakushukai, where it's like you're just learning together. You're just sharing and learning.
Right.
I think those are great. I think that the like even if you can have like a very general banner, right? Where it's just kind of like a martial arts organization where people can kind of come in and you can meet, you can train, you can have fun, and that's about that. Um, in old Okinawa, I think there was a way of, especially post-war, was a way of codifying and getting everyone together, especially and to make sure that cultural heritage wasn't lost.
Mm.
I think they were trying to also. There's it's a funny story about how karate got legitimized in Japan, but especially in the kind of war era between the end of the war and the time Okinawa went back to Japan, they did try to create organizations internally inside of Okinawa to say we are Okinawan karate, we are not Japanese karate, and it had a lot of people, including the people we've trained with, go in, but everyone was doing their own thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it benefited people for a while to do different things. That's split up, and then kind of nowadays, there's four major Okinawan organizations, um, just within the center of Okinawa itself, um, and even there's outliers there.
Yeah.
So, but I think to kind of go back to that point where it's just, the people who wanted to just, especially when you think about being a teacher and having students, wanting to expose your students to different things and have them kind of grow, as opposed to people who are, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but to just have a one focus curriculum and one focus style where you have a lot of people come in to learn one thing. So
Yeah. And I mean it goes back to um, one of the things that Mr. Yada used to say all the time, and it was really a simple concept. It was like same. He just same same, and he'd say it all the time. And some of us picked up on it, some people didn't, and when today looking back, it's like it's interesting to watch sometimes how people will say, well, this comes from this, and this comes from this, and this comes from this, and same thing. It's all the same. And you look at it, it gets back to, what you do is how you do it, how you make it your own, how you own what you're doing is what you got to figure out. And I think I think there's a discovery process in which, yeah, you're trying to figure out where everything fits in, and that's how you kind of separate and try to organize it. But I think eventually it all kind of comes together with whatever knowledge, and that goes back to organizations. How do
Right.
you how do you do? I mean, you got individual, and you've got your overall organizations and stuff. Yeah, some people may be better at this, and some people may be better at that, or some people take on this or that, which a weapon, a kata, some some parts of technique or whatever. But in the end, the bottom line is your organization is got to be whole and complete. And
Uh,
sometimes, what's that? Sorry.
no, I mean, whole and complete.
Yeah, and I mean where that's at, that depends on each organization. Is it part of the curriculum? Is it having 2 billion people in your organization? Is it having 5,000 Facebook likes? I don't know what the deal is with what 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 your goals for your organization are, but it's
Do
it
you have
just.
a social media? How many social media accounts do you have?
Who, me? Uh,
Oh
I
no,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
have.
I have a LinkedIn account. That's about it. I don't even. I, I refuse to. I refuse to have Facebook. I just can't stand it. I think I tried it once, and I still get messages about it saying, "Hey, guess what? You've gone 87 months with 0 people visiting." Okay, great, awesome, I'm winning. All right. So
Well, and it is. I mean, that is a it is very interesting because now, with social media and organizations, there's a not so much karate organizations, but with social media in general, um, it is easier to make yourself look more successful or make things look better than they actually are, or look like you have more than you actually do. Um, so, and this is weirdly affected like businesses and stuff like that. And I think martial arts organizations are just as much prey to that as anything else, because if you're it is social media does kind of have that addictive quality to it, where if you like you're waiting for enough likes or whatnot, or you're waiting for the analytics to go up or whatnot, um, it becomes like too much a part of your life where you're not really focusing on the martial arts aspects. Um,
you,
I
you
think
know.
it's
Oh,
but I think you stuck onto something real good where it's like you're worried about how some organizations are worried about um, growth without depth, as it were.
and I mean that brings up a really good point. Like when you have an organization, what is your focus? What is the focus of that organization? Is it training? Is it building a business? Is it building membership? Is it building this? And it's interesting. I was reading a book the other day, and it was talking. I'm I shouldn't tie this in, but I'm going to. They were talking about the McDonald's organization, and you think about it, and the guy basically said, "What is the key component to McDonald's?" And in the book, he stated, if you think that their core business is burgers, you are distinctly wrong. They are a real estate company. And I'm like, I'm trying to get my head around that. It's like, and then he goes in to think about it. He goes, think about this. There is a certain spot that they're going to target. There is a certain place where you're going to be able to go. And basically they're going to set up and boom, 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 boom. And once that was laid out, it's like, wow, yeah, that's pretty wild. I never looked at it like that. I always looked at it as um, place to get really, really interesting food that never really agrees with me. So that's kind of so.
That's a way of putting it. It's a real interesting food. Never agrees with me.
Yeah, so we'll just leave it at that. So
Well, and I mean, and I guess it goes in. We can maybe take it a step further and saying, what is the focus of a martial arts organization, and what should be the focus of a martial arts organization?
well,
Because it can be the focus of a lot of martial arts organizations is membership, is business development, is XYZ of kind of gets you away from what should it be.
and
Um,
and then now you twist this conversation up just a little bit. And when does that organization shift from one core business to another? If that
yeah,
makes sense.
and so
When does
McDonald's isn't about like your analogy. McDonald's isn't about burgers; it's about real estate.
yeah, but if you look at when the founder was there, Ray Kroc, basically his business was hamburgers. Boom, that was it. Just making the best hamburger you could. Once it took over into a corporation and basically franchising, it took on a life of itself. So, you know, just like martial arts organizations, when does it go away from training and learning to business and membership?
Right, and so
And does it
like
shift and does the quality change? Does it get worse? Does it get better? Is there some other benefit out there? Don't know. I mean, so
well, and I think that goes into where's your quality control, right? We ran into this where we were where for a long time we were attempting to just do quality martial arts, and very slowly build people up to being quality martial artists.
mhm,
And a lot of the time when someone new would come along, or when there was a potential for massive growth, a lot of people's sales hats were put on instead of their martial artist hats.
mhm.
um, and that's when it stops being about the training and it starts being about the selling. And I make this point very clear. I'm not about selling martial arts. Martial arts, you should not be about selling your martial arts. If you are good at It's like if you are good at teaching, your teaching will show, where you don't need to worry about putting on a show.
Yeah,
If
it'll
you are
sell itself. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And people are worried, and people say that's not a good business model. Well, and you, you know there's some people who do make their own living out of martial arts, and that's good.
Yeah,
I've met people who've been on this podcast aren't do that. there's
yeah,
there's not a problem with that. Those
right.
same people also very very accurately said we're not the popular kids. Like, we're not gonna, we are very honestly being like, this is what we do, this is how we do it, we're not going to compromise on it.
Yeah,
um, and so I think that's where we run into trouble, when you have people compromising on the quality of the martial arts, or what their mission is in teaching. And there isn't much else out there that is very much about teacher knowledge, students dissemination, go, and controlling that, and making sure that's actually good as opposed to bad. um, Kind of maybe another topic for another time is people's memory of training and people's what actually happened are kind of two different things. So
sure.
ensuring that, like, people, if there is an experience you think your students are supposed to have, or that you had that made you a certain way, the reflection is, how do you get your students to have that similar, not same experience? Do you want them to have a different experience? But if you do motivation is simply membership, then you're not worried about their experience. You're worried about ending.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that definitely says a lot about it. I mean, it's organizations will go their own way. It is interesting. It is interesting from what I've seen in different organizations. Whenever whenever the leader whenever the leader changes what their focus is on, is usually when you have a dramatic shift in your organization.
Yeah.
And then really kind of you just ask yourself, is that person seeing a new insight, or is that person changing who they really are? Um, I I take I kind of take the example of the lottery winner. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
well, I mean, you
Yeah.
have
No. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That's a pretty good comparison.
you got somebody who's got, I wouldn't say infinite amounts of money, but they have almost every and any need that they have taken care of in one shot. But do they stop there? Does it continue to consume them? Will they be able to stop at some point? Are they? What is changing them? Are they going to have the same friends? Are they going to have different? And it just everything kind of changes around that. So
Yeah. And also, well, how many times have you heard somebody win the lottery, like go crazy and lose it all and overnight or whatever? They buy a huge house and they don't realize how much the property taxes are, so they end up spending all that lottery money on it and can't in a year's time have to sell it. And
yeah, I think the statistic is close to like 70-75% when that happens. And I think organizations are the same way. I've seen organizations come and go. Um, I've seen small organizations. I've seen large organizations. It just it just depends. And sometimes when your core people of your organization are on board at one point, and then all of a sudden some life event changes it, and
yeah,
it'll shift or totally destroy it.
and
I've
like
so
yeah, and I think this, if you think of it in terms of like an organization is to a dojo like just a miniature version of it.
yeah,
Um, so if like for example, a school would have like X number of students, an organization has X number of schools within it. Um, how strongly does that head of that organization want to be overreaching, and how much do they not care as long as they have membership?
right. I mean, yeah. Where's the cutoff? What is everybody's responsibilities around it? All that stuff matters. So it just depends. So
I think you could get away with having a decent sized organization not be based around necessarily style, but just people coming together and training. But you could also have a decent organization based around style if you have not just one person at the helm, or if that one person at the helm understands that they are one person,
I I,
and
I
that
think I think you've got to have a core belief that everybody backs.
right,
I think that's one thing. I mean, if it's if it's to get them, the latest and greatest, 10th, 12th, 14th Don or whatever, which um, I've I've done some research on uh, a specific organization just in the last week where the guy who's over it's what like a 14th, 15th, 17th Don, and I'm like, what the heck is?
Really not supposed to go above 10.
Well, I'm just like,
I guess you can like. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. It sounds ridiculous.
well, I mean, whenever I saw that, the first thing that came to mind was, I don't know if you ever saw that movie Sidekicks with Chuck Norris and Joe Piscopo. Did you ever see that one?
I was not a Chuck Norris guy.
Uh,
I've just seen Walker Texas Ranger like
so, so,
briefly before Doctor Quinn Medicine Woman.
so,
90s deep cut.
Sidekicks was kind of a funny movie, but Joe Piscopo was kind of the epitome of every dojo owner that you just want to go up and just slap the taste out of their mouth. And I mean, he's hilarious. But as soon as I saw whatever, I think it was like 17th Dawn or something like that. And I mean, first picture came into my
17.
mind was Joe Piscopo, putting his hand in his belt and walking around, yeah, I'm the greatest, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. That's the picture I got just right off the bat. But, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this person has some grand idea of martial arts that I've never seen before. So I'll just leave it at that. But that was the first thing I thought of whenever I heard that. So, oh my goodness. So, but hey, that's their deal.
I mean, that is their deal, and they putting rank on Front Street for some people. I think they want to do it just to be able to say it, and I think people get attracted to it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's again a looking better than you actually are type deal, because that doesn't really demonstrate much. It just you're writing words on a website or a piece of paper or whatnot, and you're not really demonstrating your martial arts. You're not really putting out any ideas. It's just I'm a XYZ thing of the thing of the thing. Look at me. Come learn my secret technique. Like it. I'm surprised that stuff's still around, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe it will always be with us. Like the poor charlatans and the 17th Dons will always be with us. Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, mate. I thought about, maybe this person got 17, first degree black belts and added them all up, and here's 17th degree black belt. Here's my system. It's like, holy cow. I'm like, what?
Well, that could be impressive.
What?
That could be just like every 5 years he just trains in a martial art, and that's what he does every day, and that's just the martial arts he trains in, and then he gets his black belt and he goes up to the teacher, thanks him for his time, and says, I'm going to another dojo, goodbye, and then walks out, and then the next Monday he's at another dojo as a white belt, and he does it for another 5 years, and then he walks out and does the same thing and goes to the next dojo, and he's done that over the course of his life 17 times, to the point where he has earned enough black belts to get to 17th Dan.
I don't know. I'm just like, whatever. Right? I'm not harping on them, but I did think it was very odd. Let's just put it that way. I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around it. I'm like, this is something unique. So that's about all I'm going to say about it. But
Okay.
but
kind of going back to organizations. What do you think of the benefits of having something like an organization? What do you think there's a kind of a, because we've both experienced the benefits of being a part of an organization to a degree. This is not here to. We're not here to just kind of poo-poo them or say they're all for business purposes.
Oh no! I don't. I don't think that. I think it gets back to what was the core of the organization. But I think the real benefit is really, I think it really is the people. The people because a lot of those people you'll get to know, and the you will start training with them, and you'll build not only friendships with them, but also you'll have some type of partner to bounce things off of and actually trust, and not. It's kind of like, my kids are going into third and first grade, and so Sam's starting to get a little conscious about getting up in front and talking to people. You look at that and it's like, hey, I've got an idea about this, and if everybody laughs at you, do you really want to? Do you want to try it, or do you have somebody there's like, okay, I don't think it'll work, but let's try it. Let's see what's going to happen. Let's make something happen, and things like that. And I think sometimes that has I remember those kind of moments probably more so than anything from just the organizations.
Right.
Being able to really get in and analyze things. And I remember a lot with a handful of guys from Mike Miner's school when I was there. I mean, wow, I mean, we'd always try stuff like thinking where's home, let's try it, dude. You know, sometimes you end up laid out on the floor, and sometimes, I was like, wow, that was really cool. How did that work? Let's do this, and let's try this. And I mean, we would, like, one of the things we would, like, on one of the days we'd be in there, we'd just be in street clothes, and one of the things is try to come up with unconventional ways to get out of different um, techniques and stuff. How would you get out of this? How would you prevent this? And kind of almost reverse engineer things and stuff. And I mean, we're going back to technique, but it was part of the organization to where you did have that freedom to work with people in that way. And
Right.
and you look at a lot, not to put it on that stage, but you look at people like, Thomas Edison. Did he have people to actually help him develop electricity, instead of calling, oh, that's just silly, that's just nonsense, and really just kind of have that arena to do those things. And I think a lot of organizations, somehow you do have that inside of them. Now,
Right.
if you get too out of line and not follow the line, sometimes that's not good either, because then people don't necessarily like it. But if you're really trying to figure stuff out, I think that's where an organization's really comes in handy, because I think a lot of people try to work together for everybody's betterment. So
That's at their best. I think,
yeah,
I would agree with that. Like, that when they're at their worst is when they're trying to make everyone, like, put everyone under the thumb.
yeah,
Um, and that's when they're at their worst. And it's kind of to be not a warning, but a kind of feeling the temperature, of an organization. If it's good, like if it's, you'll know an organization if it's good, if you can do that and have that and have a decent group around, trying to figure stuff out and just being a good martial artist, and they're trying to help you and they're supporting you, right? But when it's, you have to do what I say. You have to listen to everything you have to pay us all this money. You have to do X, Y, Z all the time, and there's no support, no help, no friendship, no communication, right?
yeah,
That's when it's time to go. That's when it's time to walk out the door.
Well, either
Not
that.
all the time. Not all the time. There's other exceptions, of course.
I would I would just change that to where that is definitely time to deeply assess where you're at and what you want. Now,
Right.
I mean, walking out may be the option. Sticking around, you give yourself, okay, maybe 3 more months, maybe 6 more months, maybe have this conversation with somebody, or
Right.
and I've had those conversations basically kind of in your face kind of conversations like, look, this isn't right, period. You want to continue this, I'm done. And I've had those, and it wasn't like an ultimatum like, oh, I'm someone special. No, it's like, look, there's a certain level of tolerance I'll put up with in this area and in this arena, and if you don't want, this is what you're looking for, then it's time for me to go. And I never look at it as an
Right.
I never try to phrase it as an ultimatum, even though sometimes it does come across that way. But it's it's like this is where my integrity of me is. I'm not going to cross that line or cross that line
Right.
anymore.
Right. And I think that's good. And I think that's because you need to hold yourself to, ultimately when you enter an organization, you're doing it for the benefit. If you are just training, just you are doing it for, to benefit yourself, but to also, become a part of something bigger.
Yeah.
If you have students, maybe it's for you, but it is also definitely for them. And you're trying to, get them to go into this organization, and take it or leave it for what it is. But when you say I am this person's teacher, or this person is my student, or I am a part of this organization, or even more so, you are the head of an organization, you say, oh, these XYZ people are a part of our organization, you are taking responsibility for those people
Mm.
to a degree, not 100%. Because obviously, we don't live in a fiefdom society. We live in a generally free world, at least
Right.
most places where we operate out of. We don't. If people start treating others like a fiefdom, that's one thing, but you take responsibility for those people in terms of, they're there to learn martial arts. You're there to help improve their lives. You're there to help make to give them some sort of benefit.
Right.
Um, Even if it's just, I remember going to stuff where, yeah, I didn't really learn a lot, but it was great to see people.
Well, I mean,
I think there's something to be said about that.
well, I mean,
Because where you can,
it depends. Yeah, I mean, it's always, a lot of people that you really build a lot of relationships. I mean, and it's funny. You pound on people over time, and guess what? They're kind of like your family. They're like your brothers and sisters, and and they are, and you are glad to see them most of the time. And there are some people in some of the previous organizations I've been a part of. Do I miss them? Absolutely. I think about them every once in a while. I wonder how they're doing, but sometimes um, they've taken that organization mentality to where it's like, oh, well, if you're either with us or against us, and I'm like, I'm not.
it's neither. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm. Life is too short to have that attitude with me. I mean, somebody else, more power to you, I guess, but me, I don't have time to deal with that. So.
Oh, what you're ultimately doing there is closing off doors. You're ultimately closing more doors than you're opening.
Right.
Um, and you want to close a bunch of doors to people because I have fidelity to this organization and blah, 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 blah. Like, this, if you have an organization of like 300 people, right?
Yeah.
There's about 7 billion other people who aren't a part of that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna shut off the rest of the world? Like,
Yeah, it get. I don't know. I mean, I've got my opinions about that, and probably need to just leave them with me. But and it's nothing against them, but I think sometimes people get into almost a gang mentality. It's like this is our gang. This
oh,
is our gang. Does that make sense? I mean, have you ever witnessed?
yeah, yeah. Like I mean, it does sometimes feel like you're part of the mafia, like
A
to a
little bit?
degree. Um,
Yeah, I mean, and and to
it's not
me,
always that way. Like,
no, it's not always from every person either. It's sometimes it's just a handful of people, and I've had that come across to me, and I'm just like, well, I don't know. I I almost say, "Huh, I feel sorry for you. Go take a crap and get over it. I don't know. I, I I don't know what to tell people that I think being a part of an organization is a great thing, but I think for me, I have to know where my personal integrity is, and if something's going on I don't like, and that goes against my integrity, where I stand, not just with myself but with my family and things like that.
yeah,
If it hits a line that crosses that, it, I've got to seriously assess the situation. Sometimes you got to say goodbye, and sometimes it's not so nice.
no,
So
and it's not. And if you think about the financial aspect of it, if you're being ringed up for more and more and more money, um, from every which way, then maybe it's time. Like, especially if you got a family and stuff like that. It's like I was talking with somebody who's trained for a long time, and we were talking about I forget who we were talking about, but he'd been training for a while, and then he was looking at like this one teacher, and that he was teaching like 5 different seminars a year, and he had this camp and that camp, and then he's like, I put the dots together about how much money I'd be spending each time I would go out there, and he's like, no, 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 I see what's going on here, and it's funneling more and more to one guy than it was actually
yeah,
doing any martial arts training.
yeah,
So, and sometimes people can justify that, and sometimes they can. But
yeah, yeah. I mean, it just depends on it just depends on the justification and what they come up with. Like um, one of my one of my favorite ones that I've heard of was um, like an organization saying, well, you have to test every month, and even if you don't pass you still have to pay this much for a belt, and your belts are going to go up increasingly. Your first belt test is going to be $15, the next one's going to be 25, next one's going to be 50, and then your black belt's going to be 500 to 1,000, and then each level black belt is like, well, this one's 1,000, this one's 2,000, and if you want your fourth or fifth done, that's going to be $8,000 to $10,000, and you're
oh
just,
god,
I mean, you're just like, holy catfish. I and it's kind of like some of the students that I teach, like as my adjuncts, at the university, I teach a adjunct course in IT, and they'll come up to me and ask me, what book do I need? Well, this is the required text. Now, you can go to the bookstore, get hammered on your price, and then feel bad and mistreated after you walk out of there, or you can go to discount sites like Amazon or wherever else, and
Albus, that's still around.
what? Well, well, there's a couple others that I won't. I mentioned face to face in my class, but I try not to mention them anywhere else because
Right.
I
But I
don't.
come back for you.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how legal they are, but that's okay. And all I'm like is, look, I just want you to have the information. How you get it, I don't care. So, and that's
Right.
kind of how I look at it from martial arts perspective too. It's like, do I really need to be paying $10,000 for a level of black belt or something? It's like, is that going to help me out any? I mean, seriously, other than unless I've got a dojo and I've got a competing person, across the street, like, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this, I got that. Who cares? I sorry, maybe I'm just getting too old. I just don't have time for that crap anymore. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think anybody's got time for that. But
Well,
cool. Well, I think we cracked it. We cracked that nut and scattered it all over the place. With a hint for where we're going next week or next time. Anything you want to kind of close on?
um, no, I think what I'd close on is, organizations. There's always good and bad, and it is what you make of it. Um, but know where your personal integrity's at, and just kind of weigh whatever's there. Is it necessary or is it not? And I think that kind of helps people. I think that'll help, or at least I wish I would have known that before I got into different organizations, good or bad or ugly. So
Right. No, definitely. And, if you're going to approach an organization or you feel like you need to be a part of something, just remember you've got to maintain who you are despite what you might want to get out of that.
yeah,
So keep those things in mind, and hopefully whoever's ever listening will make the right choice. So what you working on this week?
I'm going right back to sign. That's the main thing I'm working on right now. So
Hmm. I'm working on that, doing more One Punch Man stuff, and just trying to build up myself physically a little more again. It's kind of I lost that for about half a year. If you guys remember, a couple months ago, I was running every day. Then my tendonitis kicked up, and so but actually, I managed to figure out how to prevent all that. So just got to keep working through that. Um, and maybe I think in a couple of weeks there's something going on in Okinawa that I might be going down for, but we'll see what happens if the typhoons don't allow boat travel.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But yeah, probably the only other thing I've got going on is keep practicing swimming. Maybe try to come close to getting close to beating little Sam, but I doubt I'm going to be able to do that. So, but I'm going to keep trying. I'm not giving up. So,
There you go.
so
All right, folks. Well, thanks for listening. Signing out, John.
have a good evening and take care.
Keep training.